Hello, this is Chek. Welcome back to yet another one of my many video blogs. Today, the title of my presentation is Your Living Philosophy Is? ? So let's take a look at what a living philosophy is and why it is important to be aware of what your living philosophy is. Because as I'll show you, even if you don't think you have a living philosophy, you do. We all do. Your philosophy really is depicted by the choices that you make, whether you are conscious or unconscious of it. So let's take a look at some of the things that I wanted to share because I really think they're important. As many of you can imagine, I have thousands of people from all over the world, either directly or indirectly through my students who are holistic lifestyle coaches and Chek practitioners and doctors and therapists of all types, consulting me and asking me for help with a variety of different types of challenges that people go through, from physical to emotional to mental to grieving problems or challenges with people dying or any number of things. So it's really easy for me to get my finger on the pulse of what makes people tick, what gives them challenges, where they get lost, where they have been misinformed, where they're believing in things that aren't really serving them. So I thought today that it was worth giving each of us a chance to ask the question, what is our living philosophy? What is your living philosophy? Philosophy is the love of wisdom. So if you look into the Greek roots of philosophy, philosophia means the love of wisdom. Wisdom is the synthesis of knowledge through experience. So you cannot have wisdom by knowledge alone. That's the key point that I want to make. We live in a highly intellectually over-endowed culture that believes ideas, bases critical life choices and experiences on them without actually looking into whether or not they're true. In other words, without inquiring. So we have to be very conscious of the fact that oftentimes when we're having challenges in our lives, it's because we're living out the ideas often of other people, drug companies, medical doctors, chemical manufacturers, you name it, without looking into it. We tend to want to take the shortest route. So oftentimes you see things like, take this magic pill and you'll lose 60 pounds. Take this pill and you'll never have to diet. And all these things that people just flock to without actually thinking and inquiring and looking at what their own life experience is with issues just like that. So knowledge is a collection of facts or ideas. Knowledge comes in two basic forms: theoretical, which is unproven, and practical, which is tested through life experience. My teachings are largely based on practical knowledge. There's really no sense in me teaching theoretical knowledge when what I'm teaching people has to be practical in their life, or it's useless. There is a time and a place for theoretical knowledge, and that's when the best place I feel for theoretical knowledge is when you have a concept that you're working with and it works, but you don't understand how it works. And that's pretty common in all sorts of different healing arts, various processes that we come into, and metaphysics, for example. 85% of the world population claims religious affiliation. So we often have ideas that may work, such as family values, but behind that is based on some variation of a God idea. And many people believe these things as actual facts, but really, when you get right down to it, they're theories that can't be proven, and sometimes do and sometimes do not work in the practice of living. Okay? So when we're looking at theoretical or unproven and practical knowledge through life experience, we have to remember that these things here have to interface with this nice little thing called reality, and reality is what's happening right now. So if you're got a PhD in exercise science, but you keep hurting yourself in a gym, then reality would suggest that your knowledge is theoretical, it's not practical. If you have a degree in nutrition, but you're overweight, out of shape, and unhealthy, or a degree in medicine, and you're not an example of health, or at least balance within the constraints of a normal, healthy lifestyle that a teacher should live, then reality is showing us something different. So when it comes to the fact that reality is what's happening right now, we want to remember that habitual thoughts lead to consequences in action. So our choices are the result often of our habitual thoughts. I'm too tired, I need coffee. So there's a thought, I'm too tired, a choice, I need coffee. It gives you the impression that you have more energy, but doesn't really often arise into one's awareness that they're depleting themselves significantly. Eventually they have adrenal exhaustion, immune suppression, digestive disorders, sexual dysfunction, poor sleep quality, and they can easily end up on 5 or 6 or more medical drugs. So what we see is that there are consequences to choices. The question always has to be, am I conscious or am I unconscious of my choices? Arnold Patton says, if it's happening in your life, you know you wanted it. If you don't think you wanted it, look carefully at what you're choosing unconsciously. And I think that is a very mature adult perspective that people have a hard time with, but it's true. And I've come up against that wall myself many times. But if we look at what consciousness is, the best definition I've found of consciousness comes by Edward Edinger, a famous Jungian analyst, who said, in paraphrase, consciousness is a psychic substance produced not blindly, but in living awareness of opposites. And there it is. Consciousness is a psychic substance produced not blindly. In other words, you can't be conscious if you're unconscious, but in living awareness of opposites, the interaction of the male and female force that creates the universe. And all of our lives are products of that. Light and dark, hot and cold, fast and slow, good and bad, long and short, etc. So when we become conscious of the choices that we're making and look into theories to see if they're theoretical or practical, then we actually create a psychic substance. We have living awareness, not just theoretical or ideological awareness. So, for example, people can read a dictionary and have definitions of words like love, but they may not actually know what they really mean in practical experience. Now, when it comes to consciousness, in a previous video blog presentation on my channel, I talked about Jung's consciousness compass, and I want to point out that if you couple Jung's consciousness compass with my 4-doctor philosophy, you have the absolute essentials for any good living philosophy. What do we all have to be aware of? We all have to get enough time with Dr. Quiet rest, or we will deplete ourselves and set ourselves up for pain. And if we're not paying attention, we will end up medicating that pain instead of becoming conscious. In other words, we risk not creating psychic substance as consciousness, but repeating the same mistakes over and over again. So how much rest, what type of rest, how much time do I need on vacation, how often do I need a vacation? We have to really look into what we need, especially in a culture that values doing far more than it values resting, to its own detriment. How much movement do I need to keep myself healthy? And remember, these things apply at the level of body, at the level of emotions, and at the level of mind, which are all expressions of spirit. So quiet for my body, quiet for my emotions. What do I need for emotional health, and what do I need for my mental health? movement of body, movement of emotions, movement of mind. Somebody may be very sedentary physically, but be doing emotional gymnastics all day long because their living philosophy contains theories that are, shall we say, not producing conscious awareness in reality, but they adhere to them, and that's called a dogma. What is it that I need to create happiness within myself? Because how I create happiness is really how do I extract energy. This is the universal pole. This is the free energy of what people call the Tao. The Tao is what happens when you unify the empty of yin and the full of yang. You get existence. The Aboriginals beautifully describe Tao in their own words. They say eternity is physicalized as place. So where you have the intangible of what's behind it all, for which there can be many theories, but the reality of it is that it is here and we are in it and we are acting it out and living it. And the basic principles that all the great sages and philosophers left us were the products of their own life experience. In other words, what the great ones shared with us was their psychic substance. It was what was produced in them through a living awareness of opposites. And nobody escapes pain, nobody escapes challenges, because without them life would be meaningless. But what we can escape is unnecessary exposure to the pains of making decisions unconsciously, being involved in relationships that we didn't like the last 3 times, doing business deals with people or in places or with things that don't nourish us, etc. So that's where this is so important. So happiness really is, what are my values about movement, what are my values about quiet, and what do I need for my own physical sustenance? Remember, the physical body feeds on food, the emotional body feeds on emotions, and the mental body feeds on thoughts. But since we tend to create in a top-down approach in most instances, thought triggers emotion, which triggers bodily action. Negative thoughts lead to negative emotions, which lead to negative physiological changes in our biochemistry, in our body, in our posture, in our facial expressions. So once you understand that the absolute essential elements of any living philosophy that must be in place for it to have, shall we say, a holistic self-expression. Holistic means whole. A wheel must be round in order to roll. So the 4 spokes of the wheel that are irreducible are, what do I need to create happiness for myself? What are my values around quiet, movement, and diet? If you take those 4 essential qualities and you superimpose Jung's 4 key qualities that consciousness expresses itself through in each sentient human being, then what you see is that happiness relates to thoughts. You have to choose what it is that you're going to think about. A head's full of thoughts all day long, and the most dangerous thing you can do is believe them. So once you know what it is that is happy making for you, then you know which thoughts automatically to discard and which to keep, embody, and investigate. And because happiness can't really exist without values, once we have values for each of these 4 doctors, we have a system for filtering ideas and concepts that allows us to know when to say yes and when to say no. Thinking has got to be supported by adequate feeling. Feeling in Jung's term and use of the word does not relate to feeling like I'm feeling hot, I'm feeling cold. It relates to the heartfelt feelings, the inner sense of right or wrong that is directly related to values. So if you watch somebody get put to death by the death penalty because maybe they raped or killed somebody else, how you feel about that expresses your feeling with relationship to values. While some people would be saying they're standing there going, kill that son of a bitch, there would be many that would have much more empathy and realize that that person really is an expression of an illness in our culture. That person is acting out their parental programming and childhood circumstances, and though the act that they've chosen may not be socially acceptable, they would take a more mature look at it. So there's just a simple example of a difference. So thinking, ideas, feeling, values, sensation, what do I feel through my five senses? What happens when I touch this idea, when I hear this idea, when I smell this idea, when I taste this idea? There's all sorts of get healthy quick, get thin quick ideas out there, but when you put them in your mouth and you feel what happens into your body, well, you have to use all these faculties, and sensation is very, very important. And in order for your sensation to operate properly, your body has to be working well. If you have biochemical imbalances, or you're overweight, or you're underweight, or your posture is off, I could give you a long, long laundry list of things that can disrupt sensation. And we all know this because you can ask two people, how bright is that color? What do you think of the taste of this? Does this feel rough or smooth to you? And almost anything that you talk about, you get enough people in a room, you have a wide variety of opinions, because what we perceive as sensation in ourselves is not what other people perceive. That's, look at sex. Some people like it rough. Some people like to get slapped around and whipped and bitten and even like to bleed with their sex, but some like to be pet gently and don't want anything to do with that stuff. Well, there you go. Their sensation is very, very different. So the key thing is you have to have thinking and feeling. You have to have values to categorize your thoughts. You have to have sensation in order to feel how that thought or thought action works in your life. And intuition is a word that describes seeing or perceiving or even feeling the invisible connections between things. In other words, what's hiding behind the obvious that may not be seen. For example, a good policeman may have spent enough time working with criminals to be able to look at a crime scene and just by looking at the evidence there have an intuition about what that criminal's motive was or next move was, but it's not stated out in the open. So what I'm sharing here is that for consciousness to become a psychic substance, we must live in awareness in a field of opposites. And what Jung encourages us to realize is that awareness comes in these four qualities of thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. And to the degree we do not effectively use any one or combination of these, we cannot be as conscious as we would if we were participating fully in our own lives. And my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, teaches you how to, for example, enhance your intuition by using exercises that balance the energy flow through key biological systems and energy centers called chakras and many other things. So the truth, as Laird Hamilton says, is what works. And I think that's really, you're not going to find that in the dictionary, but it's really practical. And I think that we can all agree, if you change your diet and your skin looks better, that worked. But if you put cream on your pimples to get them to go away and they keep coming back, that didn't really work. When you look at the research, say for example, on cholesterol lowering drugs, well, when you take people off of those drugs after a course of using them, which should be therapeutic, research shows only about 4 to 6% of people actually have lower cholesterol. So they only have lower cholesterol while the drug's in their system, which means it's not really doing anything for the long run. It's just a chemical trick that costs you a lot of money, and all the while you're avoiding the things that would lower your cholesterol and put you in the healthy range, which relate directly to balancing 4 doctors. So these are the kinds of things I'm talking about. That's looking at the truth, and this is what philosophy is about. Wisdom, you can't have wisdom if it's not true. It just doesn't make any sense. So your living philosophy is your system of ideas, beliefs, and the principles you use to engage reality and the nature of your life in general. We all have a living philosophy, whether we're conscious of it or unconscious of it. And I can easily tell you a lot about anybody's living philosophy if you just show me the receipts for all the money they spend every month and where that money is going. For example, you might say that you're very concerned about the health of the planet, but then I see that you're buying chemicals, genetically modified foods, and things produced by companies like Monsanto and all sorts of stuff. So this would be someone who's unconscious of what they're actually choosing, yet may have ideas or theories about what their own philosophy is, or maybe just flirting with a philosophical disposition but not really participating in it. So that said, what are some tips that I can leave you with today? Pain is usually an indication that some aspect of your being needs attention. I think we'd all agree with that. Now, of course, there's different kinds of pain. If you go to the gym and you have a good workout, you can have muscle soreness the next day. That's therapeutic. That's functional. But if your back's constantly killing you, or you have a broken heart, or you live with people that you say make you sick to your stomach, if you say that, it means you probably are on the way or are sick to your stomach, then we are being given a clear indicator that something needs to be addressed. Remember, consciousness is a psychic substance produced not blindly but in living awareness of opposites. So pain means there's heavy polarity, so therefore there's a lot of potential in the opposites, but we must be aware or we're going to have the same problems over and over again. You see, I have ECHO, which means energy. This is what I call your living echo. If pain is in your life, what kind of energy did you put out? Remember, love is a boomerang. Whatever you throw out, it will come back to you in some way, shape, or form. So what kind of energy is on your boomerang? Chemistry. How is our biochemistry involved in the experiences we're having and the choices we're making with diet and hydration in particular? But you can also ruin good food inside your body with negative thinking. You could be an all-organic diet with the best water in the world, but walk around with a head full of negative thoughts, and you can poison yourself with your own negative chemicals. You can elevate your own cortisol so high you stress your own liver out. So remember, we have to be conscious of what we're creating. So what is the energy factor involved? What are you creating and what is in your environment? What's the chemical factor involved? Are you adequately hydrated? Remember, only 1% dehydration of the central nervous system can cause significant psychological disorders, as stated by Dr. Batman Gilage in his book, Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And then what organisms are we eating? Are we eating things that are healthy? And then we have to remember, we can only eat healthy organisms if we create a healthy environment for organisms to live in. But lo and behold, if you look at the research on the current state of our water supplies, be it rivers, oceans, streams, lakes, wells, we've now got a unique situation where there's almost not a single place in the world where you can get water that isn't poisoned by industrial and toxic chemicals from whether it be nuclear meltdowns in Japan or wherever it is. So, we have to remember that we have to sustain ourselves with the energy, chemistry, hydration, and organisms in our environment. And if we ruin the environment outside of ourselves, we're absolutely foolish to think that we're going to have a healthy environment and somehow we can live in a bubble. So your living philosophy really boils down to what is the echo that you are putting out into the environment, because your living philosophy, as I said, it can be determined by where you're investing your time, energy, and money, and whatever those corporations are doing becomes part of your living philosophy and your echo. So always ask, what is my dream? That's how you make choices. Is it dream affirmative or not? If you're not sure, ask better questions, ask somebody that knows, or go through the experience and you will develop real knowledge and eventually wisdom by going through that experience. Do I have 4 doctor values to support my dream? Many people don't have stated values, they have unstated values, just like they don't write goals down, but research clearly shows people that write their goals down are far more likely to achieve their objectives than those that don't. What is my pain bringing into awareness? Physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, eye pain, pain within yourself, we pain, pain within relationships, and all pain, pain about issues of the world. What is that bringing into my awareness? Should I drug or suppress it? You know, the number of people taking drugs right now for depression, for example, is massive. But if you're taking drugs for depression without really looking at your own energy, chemistry, hydration, organisms, and your contribution to the environment, then you're really, shall we say, putting a Band-Aid on a very bad habit. Because if you're taking drugs to handle the depression, but you're living the same living philosophy that brought you into depression, you're throwing the same boomerang over and over again unconsciously, except now you're dealing with the toxicity and the biochemical trickery of the drugs that you're taking for depression or almost anything else in most instances. For example, high blood pressure. Well, stress is the #1 cause of high blood pressure, and your living philosophy is the #1 contributing factor to all perceptual stressful experiences, because if you change your choices and you change your perceptions that guide those choices, then you may not be in pain anymore, and you may not even eat or live the way that raised your blood pressure and led to depression, etc. So what is pain bringing into my awareness? Should I use drugs to suppress it? Am I conscious of what's causing my pain, and am I willing to take action? So when we're conscious, so taking an aspirin a day doesn't really keep the doctor away, but getting rid of the trans fatty acids and processed foods and getting more movement and learning to breathe could be the answer. Now we're getting some positive affirmative action, and you're producing a psychic substance that will last you through your life to keep you wise in a world full of opposites. Am I unconscious of? Well, my father used to have a nice little slogan to remind me of the difference between a wise man and an idiot. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Which means if somebody sells you snake oil one time and you find out about it and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, no matter what it is, then fool me once, shame on you. You sold me something that didn't work. But if you buy it twice, then you are the one that needs to be carefully looked at, because it's your own silliness. And how many people keep buying the magic pills, the magic drinks, the magic powders that have pictures of bodybuilders and all these people that have been airbrushed on that don't even use half the stuff. So we got to be aware of the fact that our living philosophy is either producing harmony and equanimity in our life and awareness and wisdom, or it's not. So some tips for you people that want to go a little deeper into these types of things. If you're having some challenges with addiction, obesity, or disease, or you just want to explore some of the deeper teachings I have on what love is and how it works in life, and go through a process I developed that allows you to do a deeper exploration of your own life and your own challenges, my 1, 2, 3, 4 for overcoming addiction, obesity, and disease is a downloadable program, a 130-something page manual, and 9 hours of educational audio. The Last 4 Doctors ebook, The Last 4 Doctors You'll Ever Need, How to Get Healthy Now, is something that I produced several years ago now, but it is a multimedia program with audio clips, video clips, slideshows, and I show you all sorts of neat things, such as how to create values in each of the 4 doctors, how to breathe properly, how to assess your breathing, how to do zone exercises or basic Tai Chi or Qigong type energy cultivation techniques, and gives you the basic underpinning you need to really apply this 4-doctor philosophy at an essential level. My book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, has questionnaires in it that identify where your stress levels are high in key biological systems, and gives you direct guidance on each of those systems so you can lower your score, and it shows you how to identify what your unique dietary needs are and how to fine-tune your diet on a day-to-day basis. For those of you that want more comprehensive training, much more comprehensive than I can give in any of these blogs, you're welcome to go to ppssuccess.com. That's P as in professional, P, personal, professional, spiritual success, ppssuccess.com. And I have 12 lessons that I've produced that you can do right online that address the most common challenges that stop people from living their dreams. PPS Lesson 1, which is the most important, it's a foundation lesson, can also be purchased on DVD if you prefer learning that way. I highly recommend Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1. Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1 teaches you how to master everything in this book and a significant amount more, and it's taught by a highly skilled instructor who has demonstrated mastery of these principles in their own lives and been evaluated by me as worthy of being an instructor for the Chek Institute. So the question is, what is your living philosophy? I think you probably have a pretty good idea what mine is because I'm sharing it with you on these blogs regularly, and I feel fantastic. I'm not afraid to take the challenges on in my life. I'm not by any means suggesting that we should try to seek for perfection. I'm a long ways from perfect and glad of it because perfection doesn't move, it's static. Life is to be explored and engaged in. I have nothing against partying, having fun, bending the rules, but it's all about being clear when you're moving in the direction you want to move versus when you're living unconsciously or just making excuses because you're not willing to participate fully in your own life, and then you end up being someone expecting society or welfare to pay for your ticket because you're too unconscious to participate in your own life. But I think now is a great time for us all to get conscious and participate together because the world is, shall we say, getting tired of us exploring unconsciousness and values that are not echo-affirmative. Remember, we have got to take responsibility for what we do out there because it ends up in here. You breathe it, you eat it, you drink it, and it comes through your skin whenever you touch chemicals, and it comes through your body electromagnetically and energetically. So my goal is that we all hold hands together and look at what we all need together. We all need healthy energy, we all need good chemistry, we all need good water, and we all need good organisms to eat, which requires that we all participate in taking care of the essentials that underlie life itself, which starts with the planet and each other. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you on my next video blog. Bye-bye.